Hi everybody, welcome to the Truly Myrtle podcast. I am Libby and this is my weekly podcast that beams out onto YouTube and Facebook, but I'm not sure if I've made it to Facebook today. We have had all sorts of problems with our internet, so it might be that we're just on YouTube. Anyway, give me a thumbs up if you see me. Hey Lynn, it's so nice to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. I was thinking about you. I can't see any Facebook people. You could whip over to Facebook and tell them that we've had a bit of an issue. It wouldn't hook up to Facebook today. So if they want to catch me, come over here. I'm based in New Zealand and it's freezing cold today. Well, that's what it feels like. It's been so hot for ages and ages and it just feels like it's suddenly cold. And I'm looking at my hair and I went to use the blow dryer to give my hair a little bit of a shape because it just dried by itself. And our power's out, and luckily, because we have solar power, we are good to go here for Truly Myrtle. Thank goodness for that. But the solar power it can't do everything. So it can't make the plugs work in my bathroom, which is a real pain. I've got a bunch of questions to answer for you today. I don't know where I'm at. I'm really tired. I've got lots of work on, and my brain is just feeling fried. Hey everybody, it's wet as usual. In Australia, yay, Louise, you're here for a live. Oh, Facebook is okay. Wonderful. Yay, Facebook is okay. Oh, what a fuss, this technology and intermittently dashing off. Oh, yes, good on you, Lynn, that's good. Fresh cup of tea on a cold but sunny day in North Canterbury this morning. Yay. Hi, Dawn, nice to see you too. Hi, everybody. It's beautiful and sunny here now. It was so foggy this morning. It was really foggy and I've been sitting out here freezing, but because the power's off and because I've got a wardrobe toolbox call today, so I'm really conscious that, we should be good with it when it's sunny, but we were sitting here before and I was thinking, I don't know if the sun's going to be strong enough to keep us powered and keep the battery going, and so I didn't turn the heater on. I thought that's gonna eat up all our power. What's happening with my hair, you guys? It's not right today. Never mind. It's overcast but not too cold in Kimbolton. Oh, that's good. It was overcast here, but now it is beautifully sunny, blue skies. All right, I've got a bunch of questions to talk to you about. I hope you're joining in the knit along. If you've grabbed the new shawl that came out last week, Anna's Dance, I know a lot of you did, and come over to the hangout and join in the knit along because there's lots of beautiful colour combinations that you could make and have some real fun with putting the colours together. So hopefully we'll see you over there in the hangout, and you can find that just on Facebook, and just come and join us and have some fun doing knitting. Alrighty, I had a bunch of questions which have been hanging around for a while because there have been all sorts of things happening and I haven't got to them. So we'll have a bash at doing as many of these as we can. Poor old Judith, she sent me a couple of questions because I haven't got back to answering her other questions. I think I'll start. I can see you've got some others here, Judith, that have come in. But I'll start at the bottom because there might be something that is helpful for everyone. She says she wants to knit double time. That's my little stripy cardigan. It's a DK weight, and she has some very, very old, thicker 100% wool that came from the once famous FS Faulkner merino stud in New South Wales. It's Cleckheaton Country Warmth. It's probably an Aran weight, she said. I'll swatch to get the right fit for me, but the label has no gauge. The only thing holding me back from using the pattern are the increases in the pattern. Are there anything I have to factor in with the increases? Would going down 2 to 3 sizes work in theory? In theory, that's probably what you'll end up doing, is going down a couple of sizes. The thing to remember always the thing to remember is that you're making the fabric to make your garment. And so if you first think about what fabric do you want to make, and if you've got something that's a thicker yarn and it's quite a woolly yarn, so it might bloom and it might just feel altogether quite thick, it might have the potential of feeling quite too dense. If you try and go for the gauge, for the DK gauge, I think this this Aran weight that you're thinking in a really woolly yarn might feel too dense. and you might not get the movement in it that you want. So the first thing I would do is think about, well, what kind of fabric does this yarn want to be, and start there and knit yourself a decent square. And you could just go flat first just to get a sense of it, what it wants to be. I mean, you could start with a much smaller square and quite quickly you'll say, oh, this is too tight or this is too loose, and then from there take it to a bigger swatch. But once you've figured out what your gauge is for that yarn, then go back to the pattern and work out how different is it from what the pattern says. And then depending on that, I'm imagining your stitches are going to be bigger, and your rows are going to be longer. Everything is going to be bigger about your stitches. So I think what you'll end up doing, in order to get the same size, you'll need fewer stitches. So you'll go down a size or two. It will depend on the fit that you want, and it will depend on what your actual gauge is. But yes, in theory, that's probably what's going to happen, is that you'll head down. Now, if you're worried about increases, there is a bit of a consideration to be had if you're going to do increases over a certain distance, like you will with the raglan, from the top to the bottom, because if you just follow them, boom, 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 they may not work. It depends. If your yarn is the same sort of proportions as the other yarn, so the stitches over rows are about the same ratio, then it might work out just fine, because everything will be smaller. It'll be shorter and it'll be smaller with less rows and less stitches. And so overall it might work out fine. But I would perhaps stop and just think about it. If you're nervous about it, think about it before you start. How many rows are you going to end up working in the size that you ended up choosing? And what distance does that equal in your gauge? So you know your row gauge, and you can work out how many stitches or how many rows there are per inch or centimetre. How deep is the yoke? How many rows are you going to use in the yoke of the size that you're going to make? And just go through the pattern and count them. Boom, 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 boom. Count them all up. And then work out in that many rows you take, divide it by your gauge, the gauge that you have. And that will tell you the length that you're going to create with your gauge. And it might be just fine. It depends if it's a ratio is the same. Now, if it's wildly different and it ends up that you're going to make something way too long or way too short, then I would rejig the increases, and you can do that. That's something I want to cover in Wardrobe Toolbox, actually, is about rejigging the increases for our raglans, so that you get the length that you want and the number of increases you want, because there are ways of doing it. But I'll just start there, Judith. I think that's a good place to start. Fabric, gauge, and then working out in the pattern if it's not the same ratio of stitches over rows, or even if it is, you might want to just double check, how many rows am I working and how long is this going to be? And then see whether it's going to work out for you. Margaret has a question. Oh, it's nice to see everybody. Sydney, Colorado, Melbourne. Oh, you need some rain. I will send you some, Rebecca. We've had quite a lot of rain actually lately. Hi from Florida. It's so nice to see you, everyone. And Oregon. And Tamsin's hair is being difficult too. Let's blame the weather, Tamsin. We'll blame the weather. One of my daughters has fairly poker straight hair. And I had straight hair until I hit puberty, actually. My hair was dead straight. And then I hit puberty and it all went just out of control, really. And it's never gone back ever since then. Especially when I was pregnant. It was like I had a lion's mane when I was pregnant. I just had so much hair. Anyway, she wants to have wavy hair. Her brother has wavy hair. One of her sisters has got the wavy hair. The other one hasn't got, she's got dead straight hair, but she wants wavy hair. So every time she washes it, she's scrunching it up like this, and she's trying to make it, doing it in the t-shirts, and she's trying to just show me, look, do you think it's got a wave? And I'm thinking, hasn't really got a wave, but we could work at that, I think. We'll see. I just got a notification you're going live on Facebook a bit late. Oh, that's strange, isn't it, Amanda? I don't know. Hey, from the Cook Islands, Jackie. That's brilliant. I love the Cook Islands. It's so beautiful over there. You're having a lovely time. Hi from Colorado. Nice to see you. Okay, so I don't know why I started saying that about the hair, except that, Tamsin said her hair's going crazy. Yeah. Guys, I don't know what's happened to me today. Right, Margaret says, hi, Libby. For those of us who are not as young or as slim as we used to be, would it be possible to put a cap sleeve on your reef top? I have some delicious silk. Yes, it would, Margaret, it would. And people have done that. I know at least one person who's done that. Reef is a tank top, but the thing to watch about Reef is that she has a slightly lower arm size because it doesn't go below your bra, but it might go lower than you want with a cap. Well, okay, let's just rephrase that. It might go lower than you want if you pick up around the whole sleeve. But what you could do, there's two things you could do. You could either pick up around the entire sleeve and then just work a little bit of a cap like that and then bind it off, and that might be nice. But I think I would look at how deep that armhole is going to be on you and maybe make it a little bit higher, just a tiny bit, by shortening this part through here. And if you're going to pick up the whole thing, because it just might be that you've got too much here and you don't want that much there. The second thing that you could do, which actually would look really nice, is you could pick up the whole way round, but then just work your sleeve cap just for the top bit here. So you have those stitches picked up because you're going to bind them off, but you won't work them for any short rows. And so you could just do your short rows to like there, and then just give yourself a little cap. I mean, if you want to cover your whole arm, you're going to have to go the whole sleeve, the whole way round, because to do a short row sleeve cap, you're going back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, like that, all the way down to like the bottom of my colour work. And so if you're going to want to go that low, then you'll want to pick up around the whole arm, and it might be fine, but I just would check that it isn't too low for you. Alternatively, you could just cover the tops of your arms and see what you think, and then go to the top of your arm, and then when you're finished doing the kind of cap, just a little cap, because I think that can make quite a good difference, then bind off, and you bind off the underarm stitches as well, but you don't actually work them down there, so that would be okay. As to how many stitches to pick up, I would do 1 for 1 under the arm, and then I would do, well, we generally do about 1 to 2 going up the armhole and then around down the other side, but you could just get a feel of it. I would think I'd just check your gauge, and then I would see what your gauge was, and then work out how many stitches per rows have you got, like what's the ratio between your stitches and rows, and use that ratio to pick up around, and that hopefully will mean everything will settle down nicely for you, because it hasn't been designed with a sleeve cap in mind, but I think you could do that. I think it would be nice, and somebody definitely has. What a wonderful international gathering, isn't it, Bernadette? It's really nice. Do I have a tip to take a neckline from a turtleneck to a crew neck, which has a lower starting point for decreases? So we're going top down or bottom up, Robin? I imagine we're going, I don't know, are you going top down or bottom up? You want a neckline to take a neckline from a turtleneck to a crew neck, which has a lower start point for decreases. I'm just feeling confused about what the decreases are. I think you mean bottom up, and that's why we're going out. And the crew neck, you see, the turtleneck should give you a reasonable neck, actually, because if you want to have, well, depends if it's really tight up like that. I think you're going to be working bottom up, and yeah, I thought so. So go to what will happen is you'll split off your fronts, and so for your neck, but just do that sooner, and then go up and work out how deep you want your neck, and then also don't forget you've got a band to add to that. And then just start those decreases a little lower and sooner. Do you know what I'd do, Robin? I think I'd draw it on some graph paper, and I'd use stitches and rows just for the neck part. And I think I would just draw it, and then you'd figure out, how long do I have to go to get to there? How long is my yoke? Where do I want my neck to be? How long do I have to go till I get there? And then what's the shape of that neck that I want? And I think I just follow the chart, and then it would be the same on both sides. That's where I probably would start with that. Alyssa says, I like adding little flutter sleeves, both because I have larger arms and also to prevent sunburn. Olive skin still burns. It sure does. It does, Alyssa. I know that too. Not as much, for sure, but it definitely does. Yes, those little sleeves, that's what I mean. Just giving yourself a little cap. There's something about the shoulders. One of my daughters has got a ball coming up in a couple of weeks, and she's never had a ball dress, and so I said, she wanted a ball dress. And so we went out the other day and I said, we got her one. I got her basically the dress that she loved. And she tried on a bunch of different dresses, and the one in the end, she just looks amazing. And actually the color is everything on her. She's got blue eyes like her father. And so this dress is this pale blue, and it's just, her eyes just look so gorgeous. And I said to her, I think you need to put your hair right up on top of your head. But what she has is these beautiful little shoulders and beautiful collarbones. And in fact, the lady in the shop was saying, oh my gosh, on that dress on your shoulders. And of course, when you're young, you don't realize you have beautiful shoulders. But she really does. It looks so beautiful across the top, off her shoulder. So yes, shoulders. They definitely change as you get older. Your shoulders. She won't have to put any flippy caps on hers. Okay. Here's Judith again. Let's just see. Okay, I think I've answered that. I did a swatch. Amazing how the whole look of it. Oh, right. So Judith's actually done a swatch. She's got back to me again. She said she did a swatch. She actually started, this is with all the thick yarn, the Australian yarn. I did a swatch starting at 6.5 mil needle, and I went down to 5.5, and it was amazing how the whole look of the yarn changed. The stitches flattened out. It did look nice. It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, the needles we choose make such a difference to just how much room the stitches have to breathe, and depending on the drape of the fibre that we want. Don't forget, though, that you get looser and looser and looser, and it looks great, can look great, but you actually lose some of the structure of the fabric. So don't expect those jumpers to last for the rest of your life. They will wear a little bit more than the ones where you've got a slightly denser gauge, but you can have there's a middle ground. Oh, there's some nice people knowing each other in the chat. Okay, so let's have a look at some of these other questions here. I'm going to start here. Done that one. Gay says, my Sweet Melody, this is inside Wardrobe Toolbox actually, Sweet Melody is only there at the moment. My swatch after blocking is larger than the pattern indicates. Instead of going down a needle size, could I instead go down a pattern size? So there's one thing that's popped into my mind when I read that. When you're doing a swatch, don't cast on the number of stitches that is the gauge. So if the gauge is 22 stitches to 4 inches, don't cast on 22 stitches, cast on 4 to 6 inches, preferably 6 inches. Cast on a big amount, a distance. So I like casting on at least 40 stitches for my swatches. So I know a lot of people cast on the gauge amount and then knit a square and then measure the square to see if it's 4 inches or 10 centimeters. No, don't do that. Instead, make a bigger piece and measure in the center of it. You'll get a much more accurate gauge. So hopefully what Gay means is that her stitches are larger than the pattern indicates. And it comes back again to what Judith was asking before. So if your stitches are bigger, then when you cast on the same number, everything is going to be bigger. So what you'll need is fewer stitches to make the same distance. And what we've actually got in Wardrobe Toolbox, which I've got ready to show you in this afternoon's Q&A, we've actually got a tool over there called Find Your Size Based on Your Gauge, something like that. And you can plug in the numbers and it will help you choose a size. It's really helpful. So Gay, I think I would start there. I would do a swatch. Make sure that your swatch is exactly, gives you the best gauge you can from your stitches. And then go back to that tool in Wardrobe Toolbox and plug in the details, and hopefully you'll come out with a size that's going to work for you. But essentially, you're probably going to go down, if your stitches are bigger. Okay, now this is a good one. Irene says, could you please help me find the reason why my interchangeable needles are unscrewing now? I have 4 brands and they are all unscrewing. Clearly something has changed with my knitting technique, but what the heck can it be? I'm an English thrower. I've tried other methods, but find old ways work best for me. It's driving me nuts. I'm about to revert to my old fixed addies whose cables are permanently curled. Ugh, Irene. Do you know what? It's funny because a lot of people say, just make them tighter, make them tighter. And you can get the little, I've got some of those little like silicone pads, and you hold that and tighten as much as you can. But some people, the needles just unravel. That just seems to be what happens. And it might be the way you're knitting. Although you said it's just started doing it. maybe you're, I don't know, has something changed in your knitting style? Are you a lot tighter? Are you going a lot faster? That's making them, it might be just the way you're doing it might be making them unscrew. And Claire, who is on my team, she says always happens to her. Needles just unscrew and it drives her crazy. Something that you could do is, we'll start by just tightening them. Just make sure it isn't the tightening. And I do think that the little silicone pads are quite helpful to do that, just to tighten them all up. But it might not be that, Irene. It might be just the way that you're knitting, especially if it's happening to you over different brands. So I'm wondering if Claire's watching. I don't know if she is watching, actually. She might tell me the ones that she finds quite good. I know that she's gone from argh, she's gone to higher. I know she's enjoyed those. And I think she's got some lantern moon or something now. That's a good point, actually, Barbara, and I think Claire did tell me that and I'd forgotten. She said that the swivel cables are helpful for the twisting that happens. I think that could be the key, actually, is the swivel cable. So as you're working, the cable isn't sort of twisting itself around to help undo the needle. The cable actually just swivels, and I don't have any around me to show you what that looks like, but I know some come with a swivel cable. So maybe have a try. Don't buy a whole set at first, just try with one and see if that works better. And as you're knitting, it can just swivel along. I mean, it's that or fixed circulars. I guess if you're going to look at new needles, you might just get away with new cables if you go to the swivel ones. Thank you. And Rachel's saying try argh swivel cables. Yeah, so a lot of them do the swivel cables. I think that, swivel cables, Claire's here. Lantern Moon cables fit into Knit Pro and Leica, and higher have swivel cables, and it sounds like argh have swivel cables as well. So I think I would try tightening it. Doesn't hurt to tighten them, because actually Yona is telling me in the chat here that she's spoken to a few companies and some of the brands wear out. Yeah, I imagine that's true. And is it just the thread in them just gets worn if you're using them a lot, which actually is something, some of mine are super old. Actually, I just got some in the mail from Rachel today. I ordered some new, they've just arrived, Rachel. I ordered some new knitting needles because I had given my daughter some of mine, and I was desperately lacking a couple of sizes, so I've got new ones. I think you just constantly have to, they get used and then you need new ones, and it doesn't hurt just to get a few new ones. Kim says, I stick the T-pin in the hole, and then I stick the pin tip in my cutting mat for quilting, and I crank down hard, and rarely have I had them come undone, and I use argh. Oh, that's a good idea. I think the little hole is that's a good idea, actually, like using it like a fulcrum kind of thing. Some people, they just seem to unravel. Yona says, Knit Pro told me they won't last. You've got to replace them every few years. Is that why they keep coming out with all these different sets? Because they don't last. I don't know. Mine have been pretty good. I've had arghs for a long time now, and they've actually been pretty good. But every now and then they do unravel on me. So it could be, I hadn't thought about that, Yona. It could be that the thread's just wearing, and I might need to get some new ones. So I wonder, Irene, if you had yours for ages, maybe the thread is wearing. Okie doke. Helen says, hi Libby, what needle and size do you use for the neck of your sweaters, please? What needle and size do you use? It will totally depend on the jumper I'm making. Generally, I go down a needle size when I'm doing bands and necks, but that's not always the case. Sometimes I go way down. Sometimes I go a little bit down. But it will just depend on the garment that I'm making. I don't think there's one answer for you. But it is nice to look, using different needles makes a massive difference to necks, though. It just makes a huge difference to the neck. So if you've got a neck that's too tight, you can take the neckband off and try it again with a bigger needle and see if it actually works. But actually, before you do that, think about what bind off you used and maybe loosen up your bind off. It makes such a difference to the size of your necks. The same if your neck is too, what did I say? If it's too tight, you can go looser. If it's too loose, you can go tighter. So you can make just a huge difference depending on the needles you go for and the bind off you use. You can also change the amount of stitches you pick up to be fewer or greater than what you did originally to make it bigger make it smaller or bigger. But I can't give you one answer about what size I use, because what I use for this jumper, which is, here's my neck on this jumper, what I use for this jumper, which is a fingering jumper, is quite different to, say, my ginger snap jumper, which is a DK jumper. So it will vary. But the main thing is, don't be too tight with the bind off. Be tight enough with the ribbing that it holds things together and doesn't collapse. And think about how many stitches you're picking up if you're finding that it's got really, really tight or really, really loose. You can completely transform a neckline by picking up different stitches and working them differently. Now, for those of you who are in Wardrobe Toolbox, we have a whole lesson about this, and it's called Fix Not Frog, and it's a whole lesson about adjusting a neckline. If it's just not working, it's been a disaster. I've given you a whole lot of different ideas to try, and those are some of them. Okay, here's Anya. What's the time? Anya said, "Hi Libby, I found that a lot of my garments are a little longer in the front than the back when I wear them. Could you please explain how to use German short rows to make the back slightly longer? Many thanks." So there are different ways. So just like we would add in short rows for bust starts where our front rises up, it can happen with us at the back, and depending on where you add them will depend on where the length is on you. So I think I would measure various, you probably know by looking at yourself, you probably already know, but if you don't know where the length is, where you've got more length on the back, maybe get someone to help you measure the difference between the front lengths and your back lengths. And you might have either a rounded neck, so you might have a bit of a hump at the back of your neck, you might have rolled forward shoulders, which will just make the whole back a little bit more rounded. And that's not uncommon as we get older, or as we use our computers and our phones and everything, our shoulders get rolled forward. So you might have that. So for you, the extra length might be between your underarm and your shoulders, or your top of your neck, really, sort of that little neck bone at your neck. That might be where your length is. And if that's the case, then you can add in some short rows, like a wedge like that, across the back. Essentially what you'll do, just very briefly, is you'll go from side to side, so it's as unobtrusive as possible, but not, you could go to quite close to the edge, and then work out how much deeper it needs to be. A bit like a bust start. You don't want to make it totally deeper because it does have some stretch in it, knitting, but you want to have a bit of a wedge that goes in just to give yourself a bit of extra depth. And not quite as long. It could be about as long as the amount you've got different between front and back, but it could also be slightly shorter than that if it's up here, because your back's going to stretch it out. And then work, it depends if you're working bottom up, but top down or bottom up, which way you'll do it. But essentially you'll either go from longer short rows to shorter short rows, or you'll go from shorter short rows to longer short rows. So you end up creating a wedge like that through the back. And that will just give you more room from here to here. And that's quite a good way of doing it. And whether you do it at the top of the neck, at the top of the back, right under the neck, or whether you do it halfway down the neck, or whether you do it under the bottom before you separate, will in part depend on the pattern and in part depend on you. Because if you've got a choice, go with where you have the roundedness rather than just one place or the other. If you don't have a choice, then you could either do it here, or here. You just see where, like on this garment, you don't really have a choice. So you could either do it at the top, but I think I might do it at the bottom, because then it wouldn't interrupt the short row shaping that's already there. So I think that I would do that. Now, if you find that your length is between your underarm and your bottom of your hem, because maybe you have a sway back, maybe you have a fuller bottom, then you'll obviously want to add the short rows towards the bottom. And you could just do a tail at the bottom of your garment, like you could do a whale tail, because you're not going to see it in the end if you add a bit of extra length at the bottom. But you might also do it just in the crook of your back there, where things need a little bit of extra length. You might also do something towards the bottom of that, just to give yourself some room to go over that distance there. But the same thing would apply, just a wedge like that you'll insert. Not that big, probably. Might be, but probably not. Probably be like that sort of wedge, to pop that in. It's a good question, actually. All right, let me see your comments. You're talking about needles. Chow goose. Oh, right. People are saying that the chow goose swivel cables catch. Well, that is a bummer. A couple of people have said that. I've got some Knit Pros and Higher Highs to try, and they're working, says Alyssa. I like the Higher swivels. I find those very good that I've used. They're great. I love my Chow or they are 100% guarantee. Yes, that's true. And I just broke some couple of Chow I've just replaced the cables, but I should actually contact them because the cables broke, which is a pain in the neck. There's a tool with the Knit Pro Lantern Moon set that's better than the usual one supplied. Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know, Kate. But yes, the little I got a little. Mine looks like that. I know Knit Pro do a little rubber heart, and mine look like this. I got some with the Higher Highs, and it's just a little thing like that, a little pad. They're really good. But Barbara says she's very happy with the Knit Pro swivels. And Rachel says she's a fixed circular gal. She's got lots of fixed circulars to store. I quite like fixed circulars too. It does make life kind of easy, doesn't it? But you do need a lot of them to get as much versatility as you get with the other interchangeables. Okie doke. I've got a couple of other questions, but I'm actually going to go to another question. I'll just go to one more because I still need to get myself ready for our call this afternoon. I've been working through all the questions. Someone said, here we go, it was Jo. She said, I've been thinking I would love to design my own sweater for myself, but I have no idea how. Are there tutorials or resources somewhere to teach you how? I wouldn't have a clue about how many stitches, shaping, etc. I think, you know what I would think, Jo? I think the first thing I would do is I think I would get to grips with adjusting an existing pattern. I think that that would help you without being quite so scary about getting started. You don't have all the decisions to make, but if you start there and feel quite comfortable about adding A-line increases, changing the neckline, changing the sleeve shaping, adjusting for, in a yoke, if you're going to adjust where you put the sleeves, or throwing in your own pattern, so taking the blueprint of it and putting your own surface pattern onto it, like stitch pattern. All of those things I think really help you understand a little bit more about designing and starting from scratch. Even just changing up the yarn is great. So really experimenting with yarn and patterns, I think that is a good start. So I would start there. Take a pattern that you like and change it, and just use that as a base pattern, or improve it and do something better than they've got in the pattern. But once you've done that, and then you're like, oh, I think I'd like to have a go at something else, there are actually a bunch of really good books, and I've got a big pile here. These are all the books I've got out. These are only some of the books that I got out. These are actually quite good, and you don't have to get all these books. And I've got more down there which I put to the side because my pile was too long. There are a lot of books. There's a lot of books about designing a pattern for you. There's not a lot of books about designing a pattern for everybody. Like, there's not much around about grading, I have to say. But if you're just going to do it for you, start there. I think that's a good place to start. There's a lot more information. One of the first books that I got was this one. It will depend if you want to knit top down or bottom up. Barbara Walker is a bit like Elizabeth Zimmerman, and she writes, she writes in stream of consciousness, and it's not specific instructions really. You have to read it through and make sense of what she's doing. It might be good to do it with this in hand. Do it, read as you go as you're doing it. This is a great book. One thing I would say though, it's pretty old, and so some of these more modern shapes that we like may not be included. There's new exciting things that have been happening with construction that are not necessarily covered, but she's got a bunch of different things. She's got lots of lovely diagrams in here, and that's quite a good one. And yes, Rachel's right, it probably would be in the library. So you could get probably all of these in the library, and if it's not there, just ask them and say, look, we need some better books, so could you get some of these books? So Barbara Walker's Knitting from the Top is a nice one to start with, just to get a sense of what to do knitting top down. Maggie Righetti's Sweater Design in Plain English is fantastic. Mine is well thumbed. She has also got Knitting in Plain English, but this is her Sweater Design in Plain English. And this is really comprehensive. She's expecting you mostly to knit flat, but she's got so many interesting things in here. She starts at the beginning, even thinking about, understanding body shapes. She even starts at the beginning with all of this stuff about bodies. She talks about yarn. She talks about getting ideas for things. And then she talks about styling. What style do you want for yourself? She's got some stitch patterns in here. And then she goes into the arithmetic of knitting. Look, she's got diagrams like this. It's really helpful. There's a lot of information in here. It's quite dense. So if you're really thinking, I want quite a lot of help, and you're prepared to sit down and look through and go slowly and learn from her, then this is a good one. But it's quite a fat book, so there's a lot in here. And for some people, that just might be like, whoa, that is a lot. That is a lot too much for me. I don't know. Sometimes I think our attention is a little bit shorter these days. But she walks you through all of the maths. Like, here's one, the arithmetic of knitting, right? This is what we were talking about before when we think about changing a gauge, and how big are things in my particular gauge, and how long is my yoke. All of those things are the arithmetic of knitting. And it's not crazy difficult, the arithmetic of knitting. You will have covered this in your early years at school, so it's not too tricky. But so that's quite a nice one. She's got you quite a few garments that you could have a go at, and then adjust slightly. I'm just going to find one that doesn't look totally dated, because a lot of them are very, very dated. But let me just see. She's got things about short rows. Here we go. She's got these pictures, so you can sort of take a basic idea and turn it into something else. And she gives you the sort of recipes for doing these sorts of things. So that she's quite good, which is very good. That's a very good book. This is a newer book, and this is actually a really helpful book, but it is intended for the most part for you to knit flat. Amy Herzog, the Ultimate Sweater book, she's got a whole bunch of different books, and this book will walk you through different garments, drop shoulders, raglans, and then she's got a pattern that goes with each one of these constructions, and she'll just tell you how it's done. And then this is Amy Herzog. That's the picture of her there. Oops, we'll go into focus. And all different things that you can do with your sweater body. Now, this would be useful if you just wanted to make adaptations or one right from scratch. Can I list those books? I can list them. In fact, I'll put them under the podcast. I'll make sure there's a list of them, so that you can go back and have a look. But this is just some of the ones that I have. So, some of the ones. But that one's quite good. I think I got them all out of the library before I bought them. And then once I had looked at them, I bought them. Because it just, they're expensive. This one I bought off a friend of mine. This is a lot of money. This is really, really great. This is a great book. And Shirley Patton has got some incredible designs. This is all designed, these are all for knitting flat. So she's not thinking about you working in the round, but she has got, look, I've got lots of tabs in it for things that I go back and check out, because you can adapt it to knitting in the round if you want to, but you'd want to start with one or the other, I think. So she's got all these sorts of pages. I love it that it's spiral bound, because I'm left-handed and it's so much easier for me to negotiate a book that's spiral bound when I'm trying to make notes and things. But so she's got some really complicated things. She's got things about neck shaping. She's got things about sleeves. She's got, look, here's a whole lot of stuff. She's got all this maths in it. There's a lot of maths in this book. Things about yokes. That's for that yoke sweater. So that, if you're really, really wanting to get into it, I think this is a good one to have a look at, especially if you're thinking of making everything from scratch, and maybe you want to make things for other people as well. There isn't anything about grading in there, but it'll give you a good understanding of working your way through a pattern. And then finally, I've got this one, and I don't know why I have that. I have a yellow sticker in it, and I don't know why I have a yellow sticker in it. Who knows? We'll take that out. But finally, there's this one. And actually, this one is a big tome, and it's worth getting that out of the library, I think. before you purchase it, because it's very expensive. But the Vogue knitting book, the Ultimate Knitting Book, is really helpful. It's it's one of those old-fashioned kind of encyclopedias about knitting, and so you'll learn a lot about knitting in here. Look, it's got all this sort of stuff. Here we go. Right from that, understand, it's really beautifully laid out. There's a lot of great information, but it also has, it's all color coded down the side, but it's also got a couple of paragraphs. There we go. Look, they have got one about designing shawls. There's a whole section about designing shawls, which I haven't really looked at, which I need to go and look at. Look, all these beautiful shawl shapes in here. That Faroese shawl, I don't know how you say that. That always looks like something I'd like to try. I haven't done that. And then it's also got designing accessories. If you want to design some accessories, it's got a whole section about that. And then I'm pretty sure, does it have designing garments? I thought it did. I thought it had stuff about designing garments, embellishments. I can't find anything about designing garments, but basically if you read this book or use this book, you'll find a lot of really helpful information in it. Essentially, it is the thing about designing something from scratch is, one, having a sense of what you want to do with measurements. So lay something out that you like to wear and measure it properly, so you get a sense of how big you want to make something. Do really good swatching so that you know how big your stitches are and how long your rows are. And then once you've got the measurements and you've got your gauge, then you can work out how many stitches you need to create those measurements. So if you've got 5 stitches for every inch, for example, and you've got something that's 40 inches, then you're going to need 200 stitches. 5 times 40 is 200. So you need 200 stitches. And then the same with rows, and you can do it for every part of the garment. You have to do it for every part of the garment. How deep is your neck? How many rows is that going to use? How deep is your arm side? How many rows is that going to use? How long is your sleeve? How many rows? How round do you want your sleeve? How many stitches? How round do you want your body? How many stitches? How round do you want a yoke neck? How many stitches? So everything comes back to that simple calculation of rows and stitches for distance. And once you've got that, and you can actually start creating your own personal schematic, so you can draw a picture of the garment that you want, and then you could just slot in all the different stitch counts and row counts for that garment. I'll show you a picture of in here. Here we go, like this sort of thing. Let's say you do a real simple one, then you've got your front and your back over here and your sleeve, and you can work out how many stitches and how many rows do I need to create that, and from really basic. And then how many stitches do I cast on, then what, and if I'm doing a stitch pattern, how many stitches are in my pattern and how am I going to center that pattern. And so I can just fudge my stitch count a little bit to make it work for that pattern. It's not going to be, you have to do that to make things work. It's really fun, and I think well, the thing that gives me a headache is all the grading. And without that, I think you're going to have an absolute ball. So I think trying to do it for gazillions of sizes and keep the proportions the same and all of that sort of stuff, that can be challenging. But if you're just doing it for you, one size, oh my gosh, you have a ball. It'll be so much fun. You really will have a ball. And look, if it's a disaster, who cares? You just rip it out. Doesn't even matter. You could do one in some yarn that you're not that, keen on, and then do a real one on some different yarn. Make a toile. But yes, those are a great list of books. I'll make sure I put those listed there. But I have got others. There are some that are all about designing, when you're thinking about a design and what to think about and how to come up with a new idea, and brainstorming and putting those ideas into an actual pattern. And then there's more here that I've got about just knitting flat, with some real nuts and bolts about knitting flat. I have got quite a lot of other things. Sewing pattern books are also really helpful when you're trying to do shaping and add interesting features to patterns. They can be really helpful just to have a better understanding about as well. But it is fun. You'll love it. I think, depending on whether you want to work top down or bottom up, I think this one is a good one to start. But the other person, which I haven't got because I don't know where my book has gone. I have several books and I don't know where they are. I think I might have lent them to someone. Elizabeth Zimmerman books. They're really good as well. I have got one over there, her almanac, but her knitting workshop, I don't know where that one's gone. But knitting workshop is also really good. And that one, she talks you through it like a story. So it's entertaining read. And you just read it like a story and then knit. And Elizabeth Zimmerman is lovely at reminding you that whatever's, no stress, it's only knitting. Enjoy it. It'll be fun. So that's quite good. I need to find that book actually. I don't know where it's gone. It's a good book. All right, everybody, I am going to fly. It is lovely, lovely to see you this morning. I'm glad I managed to get on Facebook and YouTube. If you fancy doing me a favor, you could give me a thumbs up, especially on YouTube. Oh my gosh, YouTube loves the thumbs up. So if you fancy giving me a thumbs up, that would be really nice. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then you'll be notified when I go live. If you're on my mini mag list, and you can do that at trulymyrtle.com/minimag. If you're on my mini mag list, then every Thursday morning I will send you an email and I will say, I'm about to go live. And then you can click the button and it'll take you right to the right place. Facebook or YouTube, it'll take you right to the right place. So, you can enjoy that. Thank you, everybody. It is so nice to see you. I'll see you in the Q&A, Wardrobe Toolbox people, at 2 o'clock. Everybody else, happy knitting, and I will see you next week. Bye. See ya.